Well, hello everyone. Tony Howard here with Astrology University, and welcome. I'm here live with you on Facebook with Mark Jones. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Tony.
Thanks for joining me today. So we're here to tell
Pleasure.
you about Mark's upcoming webinar, which he has been working on feverishly for the last several days, and he's got some exciting news for you. So his new webinar is on Mercury and Jupiter aspecting the nodes. He's focusing on the squares in this first part of the webinar, and he's found so much material that we're definitely going to have to break it up into two parts. But Mark, can you tell folks a little bit about what you're going to be sharing in this upcoming webinar?
Absolutely, Tony. Yeah, I mean, you see Mercury and Jupiter, don't you, in a sense, aligned through the Gemini-Sagittarius opposition in the chart, or traditionally the Virgo-Pisces. They're often seen in polarity. And when you investigate, in particular, their square aspect to the nodes, the stress to the nodes, this is the point, I think, the bendings or the square to the nodes point that I'm increasingly finding is the great issue to explore in a chart reading or at certain points in a chart reading, something that can potentially blindside people or become a major challenge issue in their life. And with my research, we've looked into lots and lots of different charts, focusing on everything from, say, with Mercury square the nodes, Leonardo da Vinci's kind of curiosity and mercurial intellect, studying all these different subjects, you know, the technology of warfare and then painting the Mona Lisa, all the way to people like Christopher Robin Milne, who felt his childhood was taken away to be turned into a fiction, into a story. You know, the example for the Winnie the Pooh books, and then feeling that aspects of his childhood relationship with his father, the difficult relationship with his father after the war, was turned into a fiction to entertain people. And this concept of Mercury square the nodes, sometimes feeling that one's voice has been silenced or crushed in some way. And I'll look in detail for chart reading I did with someone who felt silenced on that level with Mercury square the nodes. And it's so strange, the phenomena. I was talking to you before we started, just when I'm presenting, putting together this research for this presentation, a whole slew of readings with Mercury square the nodes, Jupiter square the nodes, or Mercury and Jupiter square the nodes, and a chance to kind of watch in full flow how this manifests. And with Mercury square the nodes, clearly there is often this sense that the person loses a voice, or in the family they're not able to speak out from the crowd, they're not able to be heard, or it's a challenge to be heard. And the reading became this focus on how can this young person, how can this young woman return her voice and return her power to her. And it became phenomenally interesting and incredibly touching and empowering to talk and work on that level. And then with Jupiter square the nodes, this complex series of phenomena that we see, everything from these kind of heroic figures, Jimmy Connors, famous for the longest tennis games ever, the biggest career track record, Muhammad Ali, who was famous in the great Rumble in the Jumble for taking the rope-a-dope trick. You take as many punches as possible, you tire out your great opponent, and then you come back at them. These exaggerated Jupiterian warriors. Emmeline Pankhurst, fighting a cause, fighting a vision for women's suffrage, you know, the right to vote in Britain in the turn of the century. It's figures with a vision that they have to struggle to bring into the world. And then this phenomena, sometimes when that becomes pathological, the contrary vision, someone like Charles Manson with Mercury and Jupiter square the nodes, whose sense of visionary purpose takes on a pathological or malevolent form, and they feel they have to fight this holy war, which is actually kind of vile act of terrorism towards innocent people that they, you know, the life they projected they wanted for themselves. So we see this whole range of phenomena, and it's super interesting to look at it together, because we're looking with Mercury and Jupiter really about how we organize our thinking, how we organize our vision of meaning, how we communicate it to the world. You know, even the phenomena of doing an astrology reading, it involves people's Mercury and Jupiter, both the astrologer and the person coming for the reading. So when you're working with someone in a reading and dealing with that level of that area where they feel silenced or where they feel shut down, it's incredibly touching to do it in a space where just to speak out about that, they have broken some of the silencing. They're breaking through it just by sharing it with you, taking this risk that you could be this trusted figure to talk to about that. So I'm really excited to share a mix of historical examples, some with some detailed kind of life biography, looking at the times in their life where, for example, John Milton, who had this huge vision in Paradise Lost of religious faith and meaning, and struggled against religious persecution all his life. Jupiter square the nodes, having to fight that holy fight to express your vision. And we'll look at his life story in some detail, look at the events in his life that define those moments. But then to turn it also to this more personal, intimate space of an astrology reading, how to work with people with these signatures, how to help them express that challenge of their vision, Jupiter square the nodes, or help them find that voice, Mercury square the nodes.
Beautiful. Good stuff, Mark. And I'm really excited to see you doing this piece. It's kind of a companion piece to some work you started a few years back when you just started looking at planets squaring the nodes and planets conjuncting the nodes. There's a whole webinar series that Mark did that's available at Astrology University if you want to check those out. And people were asking, but can you tell us more about the detail of this one planet square the nodes? And of course, everybody wants you to go through all of the planets square the nodes.
Well,
and so
yeah.
we're starting out with this one.
With some, exactly.
And then you found that you can't even do it in one session because there's so much material to share.
Just the Jupiter square the nodes alone could take the whole webinar and beyond. It's incredible. And in fact, Tony, I mean, it's been kind of a privilege to be invited to do these series of presentations for the Astrology University, because it's led to me developing this whole series of material on the nodes. The destiny line as the phrase I kind of lifted from some of Rudyard's work on the meaning of the nodal axis, and these points squaring the nodes and their incredible importance that I initially found was studying with Green and then looked at in my client practice. And I went from this view. When I was in my late 20s, I used to say to students, when I'm doing a reading, if I feel I can help articulate someone's Saturn placement, I've done them a massive favor, you know, a potential blind spot. And in my 30s, I changed that, or I evolved that to the Saturn placement and the planet squaring the nodes. If I could get to the challenge represented by a planet squaring the nodes in a reading, I would have truly helped that person take an evolutionary step. And then it's a privilege to be an astrologer, Tony, when that kind of thing actually happens, when live, when you're with someone you never knew an hour before, and they're taking that step with you. It's just a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I'm really thinking of putting together this whole work on the nodes that I've been sharing with you for these last few years. It's just so powerful. And now, since I've been working with a researcher, we find that transiting nodes, Tony, they show up almost all the time in major transitions in people's lives. I never looked at it as a phenomena before, but it's the routine that comes up all the time, the thing that comes up. About 60–70% of cases of big turning points in people's lives, the transiting nodes are involved somewhere.
So interesting. Well, I can't wait to hear the talk, and I know that some of you out there are excited as well. If you'd like to tune in, head over to astrologyuniversity.com to sign up. You'll find links for this webinar this week. If you're watching this week, today is October 15th, and the webinar is happening this Saturday, October 19th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're tuning in beforehand, you can sign up now, and you'll get all the info about how to watch live. You can find the info on our homepage and also on our events calendar. If you're tuning in after this weekend, like if it's after October 19th, no worries. We record the webinars, and you can still tune in and get the recordings as well. So just head over to astrologyuniversity.com, and you can search for, use our search bar to search for Mark Jones's name. We have a link there to search by astrologer, so you can look at all of Mark's webinars as well, or you could just use the search bar to search for Mercury square the nodes, for instance, and it'll come up that way too. So I hope to see some of you there this weekend. And thanks so much, Mark, for joining me today and chatting on Facebook Live about your upcoming webinar.
My pleasure, Tony. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing people on the weekend. All the best, everyone.
Great. We'll see you soon.